Our first topic now, though. Should Prince Andrew stop appearing in public with the royal family? Love to get your calls on this. Prince Andrew's been the Duke of Disgrace for some years now. A sexual assault case was brought against him in the US in 2022. It never went to court after a multi-million-pound payment, and his links to convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein have haunted the royal family. He's been stripped of military honours, no longer gets to be called Your Royal Highness. But he does still turn up now and then. This was a few months ago in April with the family at an Easter church service. In case you've just tuned in earlier, Rob heard from royal biographer Andrew Lowndes, who has written a new book about Prince Andrew, which has led to a further string of bombshells, including claims he had a physical fight with his nephew, Prince Harry, and was cruel to members of his staff. Andrew Lowndes didn't mince his words about the prince.
Do you think, very simply, he should go? And not only should he not have his royal title, but, as you're basically intimating, should be investigated by the police?
I think there are grounds to investigate him. I mean, MPs called for this 20 years ago. There's much more evidence has come to light since. There's a lot of material we clearly couldn't put in the book. Yep. So, yes, I think something needs to be done, because he risks jeopardising all the good work the other members of the royal family do and the institution itself.
So, do you agree? Where would he go? Do you think he should be stripped of his prince title? He should be cut out of every family appearance, even stopped from going to church with them at Christmas and Easter? Or is that going too far? Maybe you think Andrew has been punished enough. Pick up the phone, let us know what you think. Ava, he's not been convicted of anything. What can we actually do, literally, through the pressure of the public opinion, that hasn't been done already?
I suppose you can't legislate for a bad smell, which is what he is, hanging around the royal family. I find him disgraceful, and not just because of his friendship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, but also because he's the sort of person who grew up with everything, right? He had everything at his fingertips, whatever he wanted, the best education, the best clothes, the best, living experience that a child could ever want. And what did he do with that? Nothing. How has he served the country? In what way has he served the British people? And I don't buy into the monarchy to start with, right? But I can see why some people enjoy the celebrity and the pomp and the fanfare, or perhaps why they would have liked the Queen opening up their new hospital. But why would you want Prince Andrew there? And what has he ever given anyone?
I mean, the visible signs of Prince Andrew now is when he turns up to church and at Easter. Ron, do you think that's everybody's right, regardless of who they were friends with, regardless of the trouble that they may have had in previous life?
Well, firstly, to correct Eva, I mean, he has, I'm not defending Prince Andrew, but he has served the country in the Navy during the Falklands War. So that's something that he has done that he can hang his hat on.
People.
Yeah, well, not that many people served in the Navy.
Well, my own family have served in the army, but what did they get when they got back? Not very much, just a bout of PTSD.
Well, the real story here is that title entitlement, and I think that the prince, I agree with you here, that he feels entitled to do whatever he wanted to do, and I think Andrew Laney's book that entitled, I think that actually addresses the issue at hand, which is accountability. And I don't think that the prince is accountable at all. And that's why I agree with you. I think he is somebody who has used his entitlement in the wrong way. And I think if someone with that higher standing in public life, you need to be more accountable.
OK, would you stop him being visible in that way? Because we have this governing system, if you like, a ruling family, and they are at the same time a family and doing the things that families do, like going to church together, and at the same time they are a ruling entity, if you like, and we can't separate those two things out. So what would you do? Would you say absolutely fine, keep doing things which are clearly family activities?
Well, I think, this is the royal family. This is the representation of the country. So I think some of the duties that the royal family does, he should be taken away from that completely. I completely agree with that. But he is a man, a family man himself. He has kids. He's related to the king. And I think some things, such as going to church on Easter Sunday or going to Christmas services, I think those things, I can see that being, acceptable if he's in the background somewhere, not at the forefront of the royal family. But because I'm only thinking of this about a family, At the end of the day, this man, as much as we dislike what he's done, much as the public hate what he's come up to for the last few years, I think he's still a member of the family and he should be treated in that sense.
Well, isn't this part of the example that the royal family could be setting us here to say that, OK, he's a pariah to you, but he's still part of our family, and we are going to forgive. We are going to allow him to be part of this group, because that's part of the healing process, actually, in families, to say, you've had a tough time, you've done some terrible things, come on.
I don't think he's ever been sorry. I don't think that he's ever sought proper, I don't think there's been any sort of retribution for what he did and what he did, the shame that he brought onto the family. All right, fine. If he had been, this dance with Jeffrey Epstein that he was, that he was on for quite some time, if he had come back and was like, I sincerely apologise. I sincerely apologise to my family and to the country, then maybe we could have a different conversation. But he hasn't. He's just carried on and acted as if he didn't do anything wrong.
So without that remorse, that's it. He's out.
Yeah, absolutely.
He should be visible.
But I think there should be private and public parts of this situation. And I think the private part, which is that bit about going to church services, that should be allowed, because he is a person at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But the public-facing bits, which is the royal family, the biggest institution in this country, it's gone for 1,000 years. That bit there, that should not be tampered with.
I wonder how often those are blurred between the public and the private when it comes to the royal family. Let's take some calls. John's in East Yorkshire. John, would you want rid? Would you never want to see Prince Andrew again? What's your solution?
No, it's a media thing against him, as the same with the media against Harry. I served with Andrew. I met as a young man, he was an arrogant so-and-so. But I met him just a couple of years ago, and he was a complete gentleman then.
OK, I mean, there's quite a lot stacked up against him now, John. You call him a gentleman, but what we've seen, the case against him that was settled out of court...
What do you mean? That man you've just said, I didn't meet him, he just wrote on things.
But we can't... Very few of us get to meet Prince Andrew, and the author that was on this morning was stacking up charges, incidences where he was a bully, where he treated the people around him very poorly.
As a younger man, I agree he was. As an older man, he was a gentleman.
But he was still a serving royal as a younger man, and there were expectations of his behaviour here, which, if these reports are to be believed, weren't met, John.
As a younger man, I agree he was arrogant.
Mm.
But where was the apology, John? Where was the apology after Veronica Giuffre, after that case was settled with such a large sum of money? Where was the point where he turned around and said, Virginia Giuffre, excuse me, where he turned around and he said, I acknowledge that I've done things poorly and...
OK, he paid her off, but it wasn't proof that he'd been with her. Yeah, I agree, he paid her off. But there was no proof that what they said in that photograph wasn't a fix.
Yes, but John, in a more recent account, I think he said about Meghan Markle saying that his marriage to Prince Harry wouldn't last, and he thought that the marriage was bonkers. Do you think that's an act of a gentleman?
Did you hear that?
I mean, that's...
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
it
was reported, actually, John. It was reported that he said the marriage was bonkers and it wouldn't last a month.
It's the media having a go at him.
So you're blaming the media for everything, not the man?
I'm blaming the media for having a witch hunt against the royals, yes.
But, I mean, Ron, what we're talking about there is a private matter. A family member commenting on the prospects of a marriage, surely that is nothing to do with the state at all. That's the stuff that we should be leaving to one side.
But that got put in the public domain, and then he could have answered that. He could have had right to reply on that, and he didn't.
Okay.
So yes, it was a private matter, but it came out into the public domain. It had a public interest, and we know what's happening with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry at the moment in the public domain. And actually, Prince Harry has actually replied to some of the allegations in this publication today. So we already know that if something comes out into the public domain, that people of public figures do have a right to reply, and
the
they
royals
do that.
very often don't comment, do they, on any of these allegations? Let's take another call. Phil's in West Yorkshire. Phil, have you had enough of Prince Andrew? Do you think he should be eradicated from public life?
I just think that unfortunately, John, I know you're from Yorkshire and I'm from West Yorkshire. I know you're from East Yorkshire. You've not ever served in the Royal Forces. So therefore, how dare you say that he should be allowed to wear that uniform and to serve as a public figure? The armed forces is to be a cut above everybody else and to do what other people are not willing to do. So therefore, I agree with your panel's comments. So I'm afraid, John, you're completely wrong. He should not be in the royal family. He should not be given that title and that entitlement when we served, when I served under the Queen, God bless her, rest her soul, and now I served under the King. So therefore, how dare he say he served when he's never actually served?
Phil, do you think the royal family is in some way responsible as well for not doing what a family should do when somebody steps out of line and moderating their behaviour, putting them back in line? That's what parents are there to do, isn't it, Phil? It doesn't look like they've done their job.
That is a possible comment and that is a plausible argument. However, my responsibilities and my thoughts were, when I was serving, was to serve my country and to serve my Queen the best I could. It was nothing to do with my family or my friends. It was to do what I could do.
What is the behaviour you expect from somebody who's one of the higher members of the royal family? What is it that you want from them, as an example?
As a hierarchy, especially the gentry, you expect a better standard of behaviour than what you'd expect from the general public.
Yeah, Phil, Phil, I agree with you, because I think this is where the training of the royal family perhaps has to be looked at. If you are second in line to the throne, which he was at one point, he needed to have been educated properly about how to conduct himself as a statesman, how to conduct himself as a public figure. And unfortunately, because I think he feels entitled, he probably didn't feel he needed that. So I completely agree with you here, and I think if you are in that sort of position, you should undergo training so that you can conduct yourself in a much better state.
I came from a council estate, and I was fortunate enough to serve in the Royal Ascot as a chef. So I served the royal family in the Royal Ascot, so I totally get what you're saying. However, I'm a normal person coming from a council estate. So why on earth should somebody who's already been privileged have the right to do everything they want to do, wish to do, and get away with it?
OK. Thanks for your call, Phil. So we've had East Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. Vera's in South Yorkshire. Vera, your thoughts on Prince Andrew. What would you like to see happen? Would you ever like to see him on your screen again?
Yes, I would. It really makes my blood boil when they keep going on about Prince Andrew. Has everybody got a short memory? Have they forgotten about what Charles and Camilla did? Have they forgotten all about what's Harry doing, slagging all royal families off in his books?
Nobody had to pay millions of pounds to cover it up, though, did they, Vera? What they did, that was quite open. That was an open discussion about what happened in their relationships, what happened with Diana.
I don't know. They swept all that lot under carpet, and they forgive them lot. They should forgive Andrew. I think he's paid his price for what he's done.
What was that? What price exactly do you think he's paid? Is it being stripped of your Royal Highness or the military honours that went with that? Is that enough?
Well, has Harry been stripped? Has Prince Charles been stripped before he got made king? You know, he did a hell of a lot than Andrew did.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Do we really know? Do we really know what Andrew did? Do we understand that? Because it's not been in court.
Well, I think what has been very clear is that he does have multiple photographs with Jeffrey Epstein, who is a paedophile or was a paedophile. That to me is totally disgraceful, and it is in no way comparable to divorcing your wife for another woman or writing about your family in a book. I think that the threshold for that is totally different. And look, I loved Diana. Like, she's probably the only one of the royal family that I actually have any time for. But in no way is that comparable to having a picture taken with Jeffrey Epstein.
Rabbiting on you. What about Harry when he was dressed up in a Nazi uniform?
That was bad. It's really bad.
That.
That was really bad.
Charles and Camilla, what they did before he got made king. I don't know. Why don't they just...
But they paid their time for that as well, didn't they? You know, they were rinsed in the press for that for quite some time.
And Vera, in many cases there, they apologised. And there hasn't been that sense of remorse from Andrew that maybe would start to answer the questions.
Oh, so you want him to stand up on a pedestal and say, "Oh, everybody, I am so sorry, you know, what I've done." Did all others do that? Has I done that?
That would be a good start, wouldn't it?
That would be a great start. It's like, explain exactly what happened, and where there were things that were wrong, apologise for them, Vera. What's wrong with that? I think that's what most of us would do.
He apologised for what he's saying in his books. Has Charles apologised for what he was doing?
No. Vera, I'm afraid I disagree with you here, because the one thing I have seen from the cuttings from Andrew Lowry's book is that there's a risk here that his behaviour could jeopardise the royal family. You know, we've had over 1,000 years of the royal family, and we have always, or the royal family has always reacted to the public demands and the public sort of standing of the family. And if we don't do anything here, then we risk jeopardising that reputation of the family. And of course, there's been past events where people have not been happy about, Princess Diana for one and Prince Harry for another. But the idea here is, if at least there's some remorse, then we could have a different conversation. But there isn't that forthcoming.
OK, Vera, listen, we have to move on. I'd love to give you a chance to come back, but we have to move on there. Thank you for your call. And thank you to Yorkshire for representing so strongly this morning. Now.